Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm sorry I've been gone a little while. There's been some crazy things going on, but today is a very special day for Golf Ball Addict. So I have in the past done a couple club reviews. I did a putter review. I've actually done a couple putter reviews here and there, and you know, I've played around with showcasing some of my clubs, but I've never actually done a full in-depth review on a premier golf club before, to be honest with you. And I'm really excited that, as you know, I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I made an announcement video talking about how I was going to actually be able to test brand new drivers and irons coming out for the 2023 season. And for the last couple weeks, I've been hard at that. I've been going down to Big Mike's House of Golf in Hudson, Florida, which, by the way, that's been an amazing experience to be able to do that. There's a lot of thanks that goes out to him for allowing me to do that. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have this opportunity to do that. So first of all, I definitely want to give a shout out there. So if you guys, are not aware, check out the website. I have the link in the description below. None of this is possible, like I said, without Big Mike's House of Golf, and Mike's a really nice guy. So I appreciate, his willingness to let me do that. And I think it's going to be really good for the channel. I think it's really going to be good for you guys and me. I think it's a win for everybody. So if you're new to the channel, I'm Nick, and this is Golf Ball Addict. If you came in here and have never seen any of my golf ball reviews, I'm basically an average golfer, and I swing at an average speed, 93 mile an hour, 92, 93, somewhere in there. And basically, I kind of make honest reviews based on a couple things. One, being that average golfer, but also value. Value is by far the most important thing I have on my channel. And I review my golf balls that way too. If a golf ball is $57 a dozen, I judge it pretty harshly because, to be honest, in the last 2.5 years, I found that there's a lot of golf balls out there for a decent price that actually will get you the same results when you're an average golfer. It's only when you become a really low handicap and can work the ball really well, that you can get those benefits out of those golf balls that cost a lot of money. So I'm going to go into these driver reviews with the same mentality. It's going to be the same thing. For example, today, of course, we're starting out with the Callaway Paradym Driver, which is, a big hot ticket item. You've probably seen it everywhere. The marketing has been really ramped up this year for it. And frankly, there's been a lot of hype. Good has been, promoting it all over the place because they signed with Callaway. Rick Shields immediately got his hands on it. It was his first driver review of the 23 season. So it's a big item. There's a lot of hype behind it. And so I wanted that to be my first review of the year. I've also tested some other clubs as well, so those will be coming up soon. But basically, I'm going to, and I won't do this for every video, but I just kind of want to go into what these reviews are going to be about real quick. If not, you can kind of skip ahead. But I basically just want to review drivers based on a couple things: distance, forgiveness, accuracy, feel, value, and looks. Those are what I feel really good. Some of those are obviously more important to one person than the next, but I'm going to base my review on that and kind of go in depth about each one and why they were there. Without further ado, let's just kind of hop into this. This is my first driver / kind of club review ever, really, that I've gone in depth on. So, bear with me. If it's not perfect, we'll clean it up. But hey, let's get into this. All right, so like I said, a lot of hype with the Paradym Driver. First of all, you'll notice from the looks there, it's definitely unique. It's got that look that makes it kind of look, I've talked to a couple people about it. Does it look like a jewel? Does it look, more marbly? Obviously in the end, I think it's more of a carbon look, but it's interesting. I'll get to more of that and how I feel about it in a second, but that's the look of it. And it comes in 3 models, essentially. It comes in, of course, just the regular version, which is going to be for, I think, your low handicap. It's fully adjustable. So this is going to be for the guy. You can put it on draw mode. You can put it on slice mode. This is going to be for a guy who understands golf pretty well, and I imagine is a pretty low handicapper. It definitely has low spin. Designed to be able to work the golf ball a little bit for sure. It's kind of the everything. It's a little bit balanced. Then, of course, they have the X model, which is the main one that I reviewed because, frankly, that's the more forgiving weekend warrior average golfer line. It just has a single weight in the back. There's not much adjustability to it other than the loft. And then, of course, there's the final one, which is the Diamond version, which is really rare. That's going to be your tour level players only, designed to basically get bare none spin at all. You got to be swinging very fast, and that it's going to be workable. You got to make sure you know that, hey, I want the golf ball to do this, and you got to be able to make it do that. And if you can't, stay away. So that's going to be really rare to see that one. The 2 main ones you're going to see is the base model and the X model. And to be honest with you, the majority of people who subscribe to my channel and watch my channel, the X model is going to be where it's at. More on that in a second as well. So Again, this driver comes in at a price at $600 retail, so that is on the high end side. It doesn't get much more expensive than that. So it kind of goes into like what I was saying before. You know, if the Pro V1 is $57 a golf ball, I judge it pretty harshly because it needs to be an amazing performing golf ball for that price, because that's the most expensive there. $600 for a driver is very expensive, so I'm going to go into this with the thought process of, you know, hey, it's got to perform really well. I mean, $600 is a lot of money for one club. I mean, you can get whole iron sets for a little bit cheaper than that nowadays, so it's definitely going to have to perform, and it's going to have to live up to the hype. I know Callaway has to pay some of that marketing money back, but that's not my problem. That's their problem. All right, so I went into Big Mike's House of Golf. Again, Mike, really appreciate, you know, letting me do that. I actually at first went ahead and hit the Rogue model from last year and got a little bit familiar with it, because the Rogue model, I haven't actually hit a Callaway driver in a few years. I think the Epic I did hit a little bit, but I did not get a chance to really hit or test the Rogue last year. And after testing it, it was okay. It's not my cup of tea personally, but it felt really dead. It just didn't seem to spring off very much. You know, as far as accuracy, it was really good, but I just kind of did it to gauge what the improvements were to this model. And then I stepped up and I hit the Paradym, and here's essentially my thoughts. Let's of course start with the first category, which is distance. So distance-wise on the Paradym, okay, so I only really tested the two models. I tested the base, I tested the X. I didn't bother with the Diamond. There's no point. I'd be spraying it all over the course. It'd be irrelevant. I'm just not that good of a driver player. Then I moved to the X model, and when we're just talking about distance, again, I'll touch on it on both, but the X model is where this really shines. The X model, when it came to distance, I got amazing distance when I hit the sweet spot and really got a good swing in. The ball traveled about 250, 255, which for me is really, really good. I don't get those numbers normally with golf balls. If a golf ball goes over 250 for me, it's one of the best I've ever tested. And I was using a golf ball that really wasn't for me. It was one of the Tour Bridgestone lines that's for over 105. So it's not really a golf ball for me, but I was still getting 250 out of it, which was really good. So I was impressed with that. But the thing I also noticed about the X model is that I was able to get that distance number more consistently. So overall, you know, with the Callaway, when it comes to distance, I'm going to give it a score of an A-, mainly because the distance is really good with that X model. I really enjoyed it. I got 250, 255 out of it. That's great. And even on miss hits, I ended up getting like 242, 235. And honestly, on miss hits, I will take that all the time. So distance-wise, really good performance there. Again, not the best I've tested so far, but really respectable. Getting into that forgiveness now, transitioning in, it's really good. Mike made up a really good point, and he'll talk about it later in this video, about how nowadays they really can't do much more the trampoline effect on these drivers. You know, the distance is pretty much at the max they can do. There's not much technology to be left. You know, it's really far. These drivers are able to hit really far with not much swing speed, but what they're doing is they're increasing the length of the trampoline, basically, is a way to dumb it down kind of, to the ends, to where that forgiveness, no matter where you hit it on the face, you'll still get that distance. And the Callaway Paradym is a prime example of this. I didn't have this as much on the regular model. Again, I had some trouble with it, but on that X model, the forgiveness was really fantastic. I was able to miss hit it off the toe. I was able to miss hit it off the inside a little bit, and I was still getting over 220 yards. And when you miss hit a golf ball that bad and still get it 220 in the fairway, that's pretty impressive. You know, that's what you're paying that money for. That's what you want to see, is being able to do miss hits and still end up okay. That's how you get strokes shaved off your game. The less time you spend in the trees, the less time you spend in the lake, the less strokes you'll see on your scorecard. That's just the truth. So really impressive there. I'm going to give the Callaway Paradym driver an A for its forgiveness. Really impressive there. Accuracy. Now this is also called dispersion. If you don't know much about this, you might be saying, well, what's kind of the difference between forgiveness and dispersion? Well, and accuracy. Forgiveness is more of what the distance you get when you hit it off the toe or off the heel. Accuracy is more of, does your ball stay in the fairway? If you really miss-hit one and you don't hit it great, it's a bad swing, does your ball stay in the fairway roughly? How close does it get? And I will say that with this one, it was really good. The X model, of course, is what shines here again. The X model, I kept it in the fairway no matter what. I mean, even when I purposely miss-hit on purpose, it would go to the left side of the fairway and sometimes trickle into the rough, but for the most part, it was right there in the fairway. Again, the regular Paradym model, I really struggled with. I don't think it was really set up for me. It was hard. I think that's something you have to get really fitted for. You can't just plug it in and play it, because I struggled. So I didn't have as much luck with that one. So it does take a little hit, but I'm still going to give it an A- because it had really good results with the X, and being able to stay in the fairway is really important. So really impressive there. Looks. So this one's going to be very highly debated, because the Callaway Paradym is basically an either love it or hate it. You either love this type of design and you love this look, or you just can't stand it. And unfortunately, I'm in the boat of I can't stand it. I hate the jewel look. When it first was presented to me in a picture and I was reading an article, I thought someone had gotten fingerprints all over it, and I thought, why would they take that picture? And then I had to look closer and realize, oh, it's kind of a granite look. It's supposed to look like that, and I hate it. If it was just me giving a review to somebody, I would probably give it like a D. But I understand what they were going for. I am going to give Callaway credit here for the face. The face looks phenomenal. I don't like it on top at all. I don't like the look down. I don't like the carbon. It was very distracting for me. I just wasn't a big fan at all. Now, I have met people who do like it. I have met people who have made the argument and said, well, it's a $600 driver. You need to make it look premium. I do understand that. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But again, making it look premium isn't always a great thing. I mean, you can make a driver out of 24 karat gold and that looks premium, but that doesn't mean it's always the best looking thing. I don't want a 24 karat gold driver. That would be a little loud, I think, even for me. Just not a fan of it. If you are a fan of it, cool. Make sure you tell me in the comments below. But for me, it's just a little too much. I really, and keep in mind, I'm a wild guy. If you've never seen my show, I'm a wild guy, like wearing really wild stuff. I'm out there. So it's definitely a little too wild for me even. So again, highly debated, but I'm going to go ahead and give, you know, as far as looks, I'm going to give the Paradym a C+. I struggled whether to give it a B- or a C+. I think a lot of people would give it higher than that, but for me, I don't like the look over the top. I don't like the look on the bottom of it. I really don't. I like either model. I like the diamond. It's just not for me, and so I have to give it a C+. I know there's going to be a lot of you that really probably give it an A and you think it looks really premium and fantastic, but for me, I'm just not a fan, so I'm going to give it a C+. And I think that's being nice for me. All right, so feel real quick. So feel, this is interesting. As I said before, a lot of these drivers are going into this dead feeling kind of thing where it's like you don't really feel it coming off, and that's the case here. Now, this does have a little bit of spring to it. It has a lot more than the Rogue did last year. When I was testing and kind of warming up with that Rogue, I just wasn't impressed at all with the feel. It felt really dead. Some of you may really like that. I didn't. I just thought the ball was coming off dead and the distance number showed. But with the Paradym, there was some pretty good improvements. It felt like it was springing off. It wasn't perfect by any means. I may be still a little old school when it comes to that. However, I did enjoy the feel for the most part. I would give it a B+. It's definitely better than the Rogue for sure. They've made improvements on it, and if you're one of those guys who likes it quieted and muted, it might be right up your alley. So overall, a pretty good score there. And then the final category we're going to talk about is value, of course. So this one's tough, okay? So this one, a lot of drivers you're going to see get bad scores because, again, I'm basing this on the number you're spending versus the performance you're getting. Now, looking at the Paradym, as you can see so far, you know, we've given it A on distance, A on forgiveness, A on accuracy, C+ on looks, and then feel was B+. And then so value-wise, this is where it gets really tough. I would actually give the Paradym a C+, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, one is the price. $600, very expensive for a driver. Obviously, I know that's just what they come out at. A lot of drivers are that way, but a lot aren't. To be honest with you, I've tested 4 drivers so far, and this one is the most expensive by far. So there are drivers a little less than this, and honestly, the numbers didn't blow me away enough to warrant that $600. Kind of like what I talked about like with the Pro V1. You know, any golf ball I test on my channel that I test, I have to compare it to, if I test a $30 a dozen golf ball and get the same results out of it as a $50, $55, I'm going to be a lot harsher on that $55. So don't take it personally here. If you're a Callaway lover, it's not that I'm trying to bash it. I'm just giving it kind of a C+ when it comes to that because it's a $600 driver. I'm not a big fan of the looks. I can tell you right now, there is no way I would spend $600 on this driver because I wouldn't be able to look at it the whole time. So it definitely isn't for me. But if you are someone who does love that look, there are some good numbers here. It's just one of the most premium brands. I feel like you're paying for their marketing at $600 for the driver, which, you know, they've done a ton. They've really bolstered it up. Commercials everywhere, signing all kinds of tour players, which is cool to see because you get the advertising, but then who has to pay for that? Well, the consumer does. We do. So that's why it gets a C+. Real quick before I give my final grade of what the total club is, let's check in with Mike at Big Mike's House of Golf and see what he thought. All right, so down here at Big Mike's House of Golf today, first of all, Mike, I want to thank you for allowing me to come down here and do this.
Glad to have you. Absolutely.
It allows the channel to do a lot more than we've been able to do. We're testing the Callaway Paradym Driver, both models, the X as well as the regular. There's a lot of hype behind this driver. You know, you see it everywhere. Callaway's signing a bunch of big names. They're spending millions of dollars. Obviously, they're trying to get their driver out to more people. Do you feel the hype is worth it, though? Do you feel like they did a really good job here, or do they still have work to do?
Well, I would say that this is one of the best drivers that they've made in a few years.
Absolutely.
I would say the biggest driver that had an impact the most would be the Epic Flash driver.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Which was an amazing one, yeah, really good.
I would say this one is going to be kind of living up to that hype. But I would say it depends on the player and what they're coming from.
Right.
So if they have a driver that is I don't know, 2-3 years old, or within the last 2-3 years, you're probably not going to see life-changing numbers.
Right.
Unless you were just improperly fit.
Right.
So if you have a driver that's 5+ years old, you probably can see, especially if you get fitted properly, a good 5 to 12 yards in distance. And I definitely, as you see in the forgiveness that you were hitting, a chance to hit more fairways too.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Honestly, a lot more forgiveness, and he's right. If you have not been fitted for a driver the correct way, you most likely will see a difference by getting fitted the correct way. It really does make a difference. So I definitely recommend it to that. And like you said, you know, if you bought a driver last year, you're not going to see a substantial amount of difference. No. Really, I think this driver also does come down to the looks a little bit. There are some people who are very snobby about how their drivers look.
Yeah.
You know, they want them to look good. I'm not a big fan of, you know, we've talked about it. I'm not a big fan of this, you know, carbon looking, graphite looking. It looks a little too jewelry for me. It looks a little too high end. But I get it. You're spending $600, $700 on a driver now, so they want it to look good. Flashy. Yeah, they want it to be a little flashy. But overall, you know, where would you put this driver so far from what you've seen this year? Does it make your top 5? Does it make your top 3? I know you're not a Callaway guy, but be subjective for a second. Is it?
Yeah, it's definitely top 5. Okay. I would put it in the top 3. I haven't dove in and fitted myself for this driver yet to really see numbers. But the first 2 that really jumped out at me this year were the Titleist TSR and the Ping G430.
Right.
I would put this driver right next to both of those.
Nice.
And then I think depending on, it's going to come down to feel and look. Right. They're all priced at the same price point. You're going to get an upgraded shaft with any of those. So yeah, it's definitely top 3.
All right, so listen, overall, really enjoyed testing the Callaway Paradym. They're onto some really good things here. Mike himself was telling me about how he didn't really like Callaway's driver. He's never liked the look of them. They've never been his cup of tea. And he did give them credit, though, for trying to come back and do new things and at least try to get on the right path. And I agree with him. I think they are on the right path. I think there's still some work to be done. Obviously, it's a fantastic driver, but, you know, $600 is a lot of money. And unless you use this driver and you're just really in love with it, I mean, just absolutely just have to have it, I don't think I could really recommend it to too many average golfers to go out and spend that kind of money. I think it looks too different. I'm not a big fan of that. And overall, the value just really wasn't there. It had some pretty decent numbers, but decent numbers when you're talking about one of the most expensive drivers isn't going to get it done. Overall, though, it's still a fantastic club. I enjoyed it. I definitely would use it on the course if someone lent one to me. Heck, if I ended up getting one in a couple of years for a discounted price, I might even use it then if I could get past the looks. So overall, you know, I struggle with this. I am going to give the Callaway Paradym a B+. Great driver, really good performance. I think Callaway is on the right path, but unfortunately the value and unfortunately the looks kind of knock it down a little bit. But as far as if you actually do like the looks and you don't mind paying the $600, you're looking at it having really good accuracy, really good distance, and really good forgiveness. So it kind of does have all that in one package, but it'll be interesting to see going forward if I can test any different drivers that actually perform a little bit better. All right, guys, well, that's the first driver review. It might have ran a little long. If it did, I apologize. I appreciate you bearing with me. You know, I'm learning how to do these club reviews. If you have any feedback, any suggestions on how we can make them better, please let me know in the comments, you know, and I've got more coming up. I've actually tested one of the Cleveland launcher drivers. the newest one that came out, and then I did a Tour Edge one as well, which I had surprising results with, and I did the Ping G430. So that one's really excited as well. I think I'm actually going to do the Ping G430 next, so be on the lookout for that. As always, keep watching to keep saving and keep learning. Until next time.